This happened 3 weeks ago. I'm 32 years old, a freelance graphic designer. I had just moved into my new apartment to find some peace. The place looked old but charming, in a quiet neighborhood. I thought it would be perfect for focusing on my work. I set up my desk by the window. It was early evening, and I enjoyed the soft sounds of distant cars and chirping birds. That first night was calm. But on the third night, something felt off. I was lost in my work when I heard soft whispers. At first, they seemed to come from the walls, and I thought it was just my imagination or the wind. I tried to ignore the sounds, but as days went by, they grew louder. I could hear faint whispers mixed with soft thumps. One night, I noticed footsteps in the hallway. My heart raced as I looked at the clock. Midnight. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I couldn't understand it. There was a moment when I saw my neighbor outside. I was moving some plants on my windowsill when I saw him standing there. He just stared, blank and emotionless. My stomach twisted. I thought he might be having a bad day. I tried to calm myself, convincing myself it was nothing to worry about. But then one night, everything changed. I had fallen asleep when I was startled awake by laughter. It sounded like children, echoing through my small apartment. My eyes shot open in the dark. I knew there were no children nearby. I thought it might be my mind playing tricks. But then I heard it again, getting louder. I crept toward the door, my heart thumping. I peeked into the hallway, but it was empty. The silence felt heavy. Then I heard shuffling sounds coming from next door. Maybe it was my neighbors. I hesitated, wondering if I should knock. But what if it was all in my head? For days I tried to drown out the noise with work, but the whispers didn't stop, and the laughter turned dark. Each strange sound made me doubt my senses. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. One night, as I lay in bed, the whispers reached a deafening level. It felt as if they were surrounding me. I pulled my blanket tight. The voices suddenly stopped. Then, I heard a deep voice, clear as day. It asked, "Why are you here?" I gasped, frozen in place. There was nobody there. I lay wide awake, staring into the darkness, my skin prickling. I thought about getting out of bed and calling for help. My mind raced. I felt trapped in my own home, like I was being hunted by something unseen. The sounds kept me on edge. I realized that the peaceful place I had hoped for had turned into a nightmare. I still don't know who or what was there with me. The whispers seemed to linger, echoing in my ears. And at night, when the silence falls, I find myself waiting for them to return. The next day, I finally decided I needed answers. The whispers and laughter felt inexplicably real, and I couldn't brush them off any longer. I took a walk to clear my mind, hoping that stepping outside might help me regain my sanity. As I walked through the neighborhood, I tried to focus on my surroundings. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, and neighbors tended their gardens. But my mind was elsewhere, replaying every eerie moment in my apartment. I made my way back home, feeling a knot in my stomach. I needed to confront my neighbor, the one who had stared at me without expression. I knocked on the door to number 5, my heart racing. I didn't know what I would say. A few moments passed, and I almost turned away when I heard the sound of footsteps. The door creaked open. She was older, her hair streaked with gray and her eyes guarded. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice flat. I hesitated. I didn't want to sound insane, but I needed to know. "Hi, I'm your neighbor from number 4, I started. "I wanted to ask if—" Before I could finish, she interrupted. "You hear them too?" I was taken aback. "What do you mean?" "Whispers, noises, children laughing," she stated grimly. "It's been happening for a while. I thought it was just me." A flood of relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by confusion and dread. "What do you mean? Why is this happening?" Her expression changed. She looked over her shoulder before leaning in. "This building, it has a history. A tragic one," she whispered. "A family lived here a long time ago. Something terrible happened to them." I felt a chill grip my spine. "What do you mean?" "They say the spirits never left. They are restless." She stepped back, closing the door slowly. "You should be careful," she warned just before it shut. Now I was more lost than ever. Spirits? Ghosts? I felt foolish for even thinking such things, yet the strange occurrences in my apartment replayed in my mind like a broken record. I paced back into my apartment, my thoughts racing. That night, as darkness fell, I felt a new dread settle over me. I sat at my desk trying to work, but the whispers crept back into my mind. Soon they grew louder. A mix of fear and determination welled within me. I grabbed my phone and decided to record the sounds. If this was all in my head, I would have proof. As I sat quietly, the whispers began again. They wrapped around me like a fog, each word indistinguishable yet pressing. I pressed record. In the silence, the laughter echoed once more, and a shiver ran down my spine. Then everything stopped. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. That's when I felt it. Ice-cold breath on my neck. I gasped, spinning around, but I was alone. Suddenly the lights flickered. My phone flashed a message. "Check your recording." With my pulse racing, I tapped on the screen and played back the audio. The whispers were louder than I'd ever heard, but then I realized there were new sounds. A faint voice saying, "Help us." I dropped my phone. I had to know what I had stumbled into. I sat there in stunned silence, the echoes of that pleading voice ringing in my ears. My thoughts raced as I analyzed the implications of what I had just heard. Help us. Who was asking for help? And why were they reaching out to me? The air felt thick, as if the very atmosphere of the apartment was alive. I needed more answers. I rose from my desk and paced the room, my nerves tingling. I recalled the whispered warnings from my neighbor. Something dark hung over this place. A piece of me was terrified, but another part felt defiant. It was time to dig deeper. I grabbed my coat and stepped out of my apartment, heading to the nearest library. I had to uncover the history of this building. As I walked, a chill ran down my spine as I thought about the voice again. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever it belonged to was somehow intertwined with my life. The library was dimly lit. I quickly found a section on local history. Hours passed as I pored over dusty records, newspaper clippings, and old photographs. Then I found what I was looking for. A poorly faded article detailed a tragic fire that had occurred decades ago in my building. It claimed several lives. The family who once lived in my apartment was mentioned. Their names filled me with dread. The Masons. Suddenly, the shadows in the library seemed deeper, as if they were closing in around me. The whispers came back, faint yet persistent, sending a shiver through me. Help us. I blinked hard, trying to shake off the sensation of being watched. I rushed home, clutching the article tightly. As I entered my apartment, the air felt heavier than before. I wasn't sure if my anxiety was making me paranoid, or if something truly sinister lurked in the darkness. I knew I had to confront what was happening. I decided to try communicating with whatever was haunting me. I took a deep breath and spoke aloud. "Is anyone here? Can you tell me what you want?" Silence hung heavy in the air. I felt foolish, but I needed to know. "I heard you. I'm listening." Just then the lights flickered again and my phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up and saw a new message. "Find us." My heart raced as I glanced towards the back of my apartment. A shadow darted past the doorway. Fear and adrenaline shot through me. This was no coincidence. I wasn't alone. I needed to find out what happened to the Masons. Something told me that in uncovering their past, I might save myself from whatever was lingering here. With renewed determination, I turned towards the door. That's when I saw it. A faint outline of a figure framed against the hallway. My breath caught in my throat. I was about to find out what this was all about, but I couldn't tell if it was going to save me or lead me deeper into the horror. The figure in the hallway shifted slightly, and I instinctively took a step back. My heart raced and I pressed myself against the wall, the coldness of the paint against my skin grounding me. "Who's there?" I managed to stutter, my voice shaking. The shadow didn't respond. Instead, it seemed to grow more defined, a shape of a woman slowly emerging from the dim light. I squinted, trying to capture every detail. Her face was pale, eyes deep-set and glimmering like polished stones. I could barely breathe as my mind raced with questions. Suddenly the lights flickered again and the figure vanished. Panic erupted inside me as I scrambled forward, scanning my apartment for signs of movement. "No!" I shouted, my voice echoing in the silence. "Come back!" Just then a noise drew my attention. It was coming from the kitchen, a soft but deliberate scraping sound. My hands were clammy as I crept forward. I needed to know. I approached the doorway, half expecting the figure to be waiting for me, but it was just the kitchen table. Its leg had caught against the floor, slipping slightly as if someone had brushed against it. I released a shaky breath. "Get it together," I whispered, shaking my head. But as I turned back toward the living room, something caught my eye, a flicker of movement in the corner where the shadows pooled. "Show yourself," I called, my voice stronger this time, hiding the tremor. "Nothing. You asked for help, I'm here." In that moment the air shifted. A sharp chill raced through the room, ruffling the pages of the article still crumpled in my hand. Something deep inside me knew this was interconnected. The Masons, the fire, the tragedy that haunted this building. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. I jumped, startled, and quickly looked down. A new message read, "You're close." My pulse quickened as I glanced at the window. The last hints of daylight began to fade, enveloping my apartment in an oppressive gloom. "Close to what?" I muttered, not really expecting an answer. But then the temperature dropped further. I felt it, a heaviness that settled over me like a suffocating weight. Shadows crawled along the walls, twisting and curling as if something was alive within them. Heart racing, I was torn between fleeing the apartment and confronting whatever was here. It was as if I had stirred a restless spirit, unleashing a force demanding attention. I gritted my teeth, determined to step forward and face it. "What do you want from me?" Before I could brace myself, everything went dark. The light sputtered out, drowning me in a thick, dark silence. I fumbled for my phone, its glow the only comfort in the void. That's when I heard it, a quiet, desperate plea. "Help us." My throat tightened as dread filled me. Who exactly was begging for help? And why did it sound so familiar? The answer hovered just out of reach, teasing me as the weight of my choices pressed down, urging me to understand before it was too late. The darkness felt alive around me, as though it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I clutched my phone tightly, the faint light illuminating just enough of the room to reveal my surroundings: the couch, the coffee table, the paths of shadow between them. "Hello?" I called again, my voice barely a whisper. "Is anyone there?" I could hear my words dissolve into the silence, barely reaching beyond the confines of my own fear. Then I heard it again, a faint scratching, this time closer. My heart jumped and I shuffled sideways, eyes darting toward the sound. The noise seemed to slide across the floor, zigzagging toward me. I stepped back, bumping into the table, the weight of the message on my phone feeling heavier in my hand. "Who are you? What do you want?" I shouted, frustration edging into my tone. It was ridiculous to yell into the dark, but panic was mounting. I was on the brink of losing myself to the fear that loomed just out of sight. As if in response, the scratching stopped. The stillness that followed felt charged and thick. I swallowed hard, trying to shake the taste of horror from my mouth. My mind turned back to the article I had been reading earlier, the story of the Masons, the tragedy that had overwhelmed their lives, leaving nothing but whispers and shadows. A chill raced down my spine as I wondered whether those spirits were truly lost, or if they had something more personal to communicate. I took a deep breath and decided to investigate. I crept towards the kitchen. Each step felt weighted, the floor beneath my feet creaking softly. My phone's light flickered, casting uncertain shadows on the walls. What if it went out completely? I didn't know if I could face the dark again. Then I spotted it, a small piece of paper on the floor just beyond the threshold of the kitchen. I knelt down, hesitating for a moment to look around. Had someone been here? The dizzying thought spiraled through my mind, but I pushed it aside. I stretched my hand toward the paper, feeling a strange pull toward it. As I picked it up, a whirlwind of memories rushed back. The words on the paper were faded but legible. Remember us. Before I could fully process what it meant, there it was again. The plea. Help us! This time it was louder, more desperate. A chorus of whispers flooded my ears, echoing my own racing heartbeat. As I stood up, clutching the note, something brushed against the back of my neck. A cold finger. I spun around, but nothing was there. My pulse raced. The fear tightened like a noose. "Who's there?" I cried, irritation replacing the terror, demanding a response. The shadows shifted as if they were teasing me, drawing me deeper. I felt the walls of my apartment begin to close in as I faced that ever-present dread. That was when I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps, soft, deliberate, and moving closer. I wasn't alone anymore. I waited, heart pounding as the footsteps drew nearer. Each step was like a countdown, and I couldn't shake the sensation of a presence creeping closer behind me. The air turned colder and I shivered, clutching my phone like a lifeline. "Is someone there?" I tried again, but my voice trembled, betraying my fear. The footsteps halted just outside the beam of my phone's light. I squinted into the dark, searching for any sign of movement. My throat tightened. The shadows felt oppressive, closing in like a dark curtain. I thought about bolting to the front door but froze, every instinct screaming for me to stay put. Just then, I noticed another piece of paper fluttering down from the kitchen counter. It landed softly at my feet. I bent down, my curiosity battling the terror coiling in my gut. When I looked closer, I could see a list of names scrawled in shaky handwriting. Each name was followed by a date. Some went back decades. I reached for it, but more than the chilling words, a sense of dread washed over me. I recognized one of the names, a distant relative whose story had been lost to time. Something tugged in my memory, but fear blurred everything. "Remember us," I whispered, the words echoing in my mind. The scratching sound returned, this time accompanied by muffled crying. A chorus of unheard sorrow filled the silence. I glanced toward the kitchen again, feeling the pull, almost magnetically, to discover more. But before I could make a move, the overhead light flickered and sputtered, casting jittery shadows that danced along the walls. I felt faint, a sense of nausea creeping up on me as the whispers grew louder. "Help us," they cried again, but this time it was different. It felt personal. An urgent plea that reached into my chest, clawing at my heart. Then, without warning, the power surged and everything went dark. The phone's light flickered, dimming rapidly until I was swallowed by the void. Panic surged through me. I jerked my head around, trying to sense where the footsteps had gone. But there was only silence. I stumbled toward where I thought the door was, but something cold and clammy wrapped around my wrist, holding me in place. My breath caught in my throat, and I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for the light to return. In the pitch darkness, a clear voice rang out directly beside me. "You have to help us. You need to remember." The sound sent shockwaves through my body, thrumming with undeniable urgency. My heart raced as I forced my eyes open, desperate to face whatever lay hidden in the shadows. I realized somehow I wouldn't be leaving this encounter without answers. And just then the lights abruptly flickered back on, revealing a figure standing only a few feet away, shadowed but unmistakable, watching me with intensity. I could only gasp, knowing I had crossed a line from which there was no return. The figure in front of me was tall and indistinct, cloaked in shadow. I strained to see their face, but all I could make out were the glimmers of what looked like eyes, dark reflective pools that drilled into mine. My heart raced again, and every instinct urged me to flee, but I stood frozen, a part of me desperate for answers. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out. My voice trembled, revealing the fear I couldn't suppress. "Remember," the figure said, their voice a whisper that carried an authority I couldn't quite understand. It wasn't just a plea. It felt like a command. Just then my phone buzzed in my hand, jolting me from my stupor. A notification flared to life, illuminating my surroundings briefly. The chaotic light showed me an empty room, but when I looked back at the figure, they had stepped closer. even closer than before, enough that I felt a chill radiate off them, an icy breath that sliced through the lingering warmth of the room. "Help us," they repeated. "They don't know. But you do." Panic threatened to engulf me. I had no idea what they meant or who they were. My thoughts raced back to the list of names. They reverberated in my mind like a haunting refrain. I couldn't remember anything, but I had to try. "Why are you here? What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice cracking as confusion filled me. "Your blood remembers," they said, their tone desperate yet calm. And then they reached out, brushing my wrist lightly. The shock of cold ran through me, and my surroundings shifted. In an instant, scenes flickered in my mind. Faces I didn't recognize, and places I'd never been. The kitchen faded away, replaced by a long-forgotten house filled with laughter and quiet conversations, tinged with a sadness I couldn't comprehend. "Stop!" I yelled, reeling from the influx of memories. "I don't understand." Then everything went dark again, as rapidly as it had returned. The figure was gone, and the coldness did not linger, replaced by a suffocating silence. I blinked into the void, heart thumping wildly. My breath came in quick, shallow bursts. I fumbled to turn on my phone's flashlight again, but it was unresponsive. My mind raced with questions. Frustration boiled within me. I had to know what this meant. I needed to see the list again. I stumbled back towards the kitchen, half expecting to find the figure waiting for me, but the room was empty. The air felt heavy, and I longed for clarity. I reached the countertop, hands shaking as I fumbled through the sudden darkness. That's when I saw it. A mirror reflecting a shadow stretching far behind me. The figure reappeared, this time looking more solid, forming right out of the darkness. I felt the chill return, creeping up my spine like fear made flesh. "Remember," they said again, but this time their voice echoed with the pain of countless souls. I felt faint again, a wave of dizziness crashing over me. I couldn't escape this. This was my past, and I had to uncover the truth. But what did it mean? I steeled myself against the fear and faced the encroaching shadows. I would learn what I had forgotten, or I would be haunted forever by the faces of those I could no longer recognize. The night was just beginning. I blinked again and stumbled backward, feeling the walls closing in. The familiar contours of my kitchen seemed to shift like a bad dream. The figure still loomed in the mirror, a darkness that promised to engulf me if I didn't figure out what they wanted. "Your blood remembers," echoed in my mind as the chill washed over me. There had to be something to uncover, a thread to pull that would unravel this entire mystery. I had to gather my thoughts. With shaky hands, I grabbed the edge of the countertop, grounding myself. I needed to focus. "Think," I whispered to myself, trying to ignore the figure's presence. I headed back to the living room, desperately searching for my phone. The light was my lifeline. I rifled through the couch cushions, and an icy grip tightened around my heart as I realized it wasn't there. That's when I heard it. A soft thud from the hallway. My breath caught in my throat. Was someone in the apartment? I felt a rush of adrenaline. I glanced toward the hallway, nerves prickling. I stood still, listening closely. The sound came again, a muted scraping. "Hello?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. Silence answered. I took a step forward, my heart hammering against my ribcage. The hallway was shrouded in darkness. As I moved closer, lights flickered back on, and my heart sank when I saw the door at the end of the hallway was slightly ajar. It wasn't open the last time I had checked. I swallowed hard, moving cautiously. The door creaked as if inviting me in, or warning me to stay away. I paused, thoughts racing. This was it. I could either run or face whatever or whoever was on the other side. "I'm not afraid," I said, though my voice wavered. With a quick push, I opened the door wider. Inside it was empty. A small, dusty room with shadows lurking in the corners. Just as I thought I was alone, something caught my eye. A piece of paper near the corner of the floor. I crouched down, heart racing, and snatched it up. It was a torn piece from a notebook, and my pulse quickened when I saw familiar names scrawled across it. My own name was there, along with the names from my list. But then, beneath those in a different handwriting were notes. She remembers. The bloodline must be protected. My mind flew back to the figure's words. Your blood remembers. I felt a sudden rush of clarity, mixed with dread. This was connected. This wasn't just about me. It was about something bigger. Then I heard a noise, louder this time, a scraping sound from behind me. Heart in my throat, I whipped around. The door closed on its own, locking me in that silent room as darkness enveloped me. I scrambled for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I was trapped. Panic intensified. I needed to escape, to understand this truth before I was consumed by it. I turned back to the scraps of paper, determined to uncover more, before whatever darkness lingered behind me pounced. I had to know if the ghosts of my past were about to become painfully real. The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. I turned back to the torn paper, clutching it like a lifeline. The words swam before my eyes, making my pulse race even faster. Protected. It felt like a warning and a plea. I needed more light. I felt my way along the wall, searching for a switch or some other way to illuminate the room. My fingers brushed against the rough wall until I found it, a small dusty switch. I flipped it, but nothing happened. The silence was oppressive. Then a faint glimmer caught my eye. I squinted and realized it was coming from the floor. I moved closer. It was an old brass locket, partially buried in dirt and grime. I picked it up, feeling its coldness in my palm. My breath quickened as I opened it. Inside, there were two photographs, one of a woman who looked eerily like me and another of a man I didn't recognize. A chill rode up my spine. Why did it feel like I was looking at my own reflection and a stranger at the same time? The scraping sound grew louder. I dropped the locket, my heart racing. I moved to the door again, tugging harder this time, desperation taking over. "Let me out! This isn't funny!" No response. Just the gnawing sound of something, or someone, moving closer. I pressed my back against the wall. I had to confront the fear rooting me in place. What was I so afraid of? Suddenly the door rattled violently. I jumped, my breath caught. The lock gave a soft click and the door creaked open just a crack. I hesitated, ready to bolt if anything lunged at me. I pushed the door wider, peering into the hallway. It was empty, but the lights flickered ominously, hinting at some unseen force. I stepped out cautiously. My thoughts raced as I replayed the words on that torn paper. She remembers. Had I somehow forgotten? I made my way down the hallway, trying to keep myself calm. The scraping sound had stopped, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. And just when I thought I was safe, the lights dimmed again, plunging me into darkness. I fell back against the wall, panic clawing at my throat. My breath was loud in the eerie silence. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, adrenaline kicking in. "Who's there?" I shouted, voice trembling. The only reply was the sound of my own pulse in my ears. I was alone, or so I thought. Just as I began to convince myself it was just my imagination, a shadow slipped across the wall, moving quickly. My heart sank. I wasn't alone. The figure loomed larger, twisting and shifting in the dark. I had to move. I dashed toward the living room, each breath coming harder than the last. There had to be a way out, another door, or a window. I reached the entrance, panic-stricken as I approached the living room. That's when everything went cold. A whisper floated through the air, chilling me to my core. "You shouldn't have come back." I froze. The words lingered, wrapping around me like a snake, tightening with each breath I took. In that moment, I finally realized it was all connected. But before I could figure it out, something surged out of the shadows, and I barely managed to escape into the light. I stumbled into the living room, my heart racing as I glanced back toward the hallway. Whatever that shadow was, it felt like a living nightmare, the embodiment of the fear I had carried since moving in. I tried to steel myself, but the weight of uncertainty hung thick in the air, threatening to pull me back into its depths. Just as I thought I might be safe, my phone buzzed again. A stark reminder of the message I still needed to decode. "Find us." I quickly checked the screen. There it was again, that chilling command. Unease twisted in my stomach. Why did it want me to find something? Find who? I whispered to the empty room, but only silence answered. The hairs on my neck prickled. If the whispers were right, I was somehow tied to these restless souls. Their fate and mine seemed tangled, irrevocably. I scanned the room, my eyes landing on the walls lined with memories. Paintings, pictures, remnants of this building's long, tragic past. I caught a glimpse of a framed photo on the bookshelf, an image that stirred something within me. It depicted an innocuous family, smiling and posed. The woman in the frame bore a striking resemblance to me, the same cascading hair, the same eyes. The gnawing realization struck me hard. I need to remember, I murmured, but part of me feared what that could mean. The air around me seemed to ripple as if it were reacting to my thoughts. I sensed the presence of the unseen, the whispers wrapping around me like a familiar embrace. Turning from the shelves, I took a deep breath, yearning to reconcile this mystery. Show me, I called out, my voice flowing with defiance. I had to confront this twisted past. In doing so, I might release whatever darkness lurked within these walls. Just then, the shadows danced, twisting along the floor like wraiths of smoke. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to face what might emerge. What does it want from me? I demanded into the dark. A cacophony of whispers swirled around me, louder now, melding into one agonized plea. Help us! And then through the overwhelming thrum of voices, a singular, clearer voice broke through the noise. Remember. Light flickered again, illuminating a small, darkened corner of the room. As if compelled by some unseen force, I ventured toward it, feeling each heartbeat echo in my ears. I reached into the shadows, my fingers brushing against something cool and metallic, a locket glinting faintly in the dim light. I hesitated only a moment before opening it, my breath catching. Inside was yet another photograph, this time of a little girl who looked just like me but younger, beaming with innocence. Next to her stood the woman from the previous photo, familiar but strange. The floodgates of memory opened all at once. I saw glimpses of a life I didn't fully understand, a home filled with joy, laughter, and hidden sorrow lingering just beneath the surface. My knees buckled, and I sank onto the floor, stunned. This was me? A shadow flickered across the frame, an echo of the figure I had seen before, and it whispered again. Help us. For the first time, clarity washed over me. I wasn't just connected to this tragedy, I was part of it. My history was tangled with pain, with the spirits that sought recognition, and in that moment, I was no longer afraid. When did it happen? I spoke aloud, imagining the connection that existed across our histories. What happened to you? Suddenly the very air shifted. The form of the woman I had seen before manifested in the corner of the room, not as a shadow, but as a glowing silhouette, both haunting and profoundly sad. You have to remember us, she urged. You need to choose to break the cycle. My chest tightened. Choose? I parroted back, still trying to grasp the scope of what was being revealed. Save us, the voices echoed, softening into a choir as they surrounded me. You alone can find peace. The figure stepped closer, her face growing sharper, her eyes filled with a sorrow that transcended time. If you don't help us, we will remain lost, as will you. Lost how? I felt lightheaded, trapped on the verge of understanding while standing on the precipice of fear. Could I truly break this cycle? Find the truth of our ending. You hold the key, she whispered, fading slightly before my eyes as if time itself contorted in the moment between breaths. Wait, I yelled, grasping for her spirit as it twinkled like dust before shifting into the shadows entirely. Panic struck like a lightning bolt. Before I could fully process, the room plunged into darkness again. The whispers intensified, a cacophony of haunting urgency echoing through the rooms. Then, just as suddenly as it began, everything went silent. The air was thick, pressing down with a sense of foreboding, as if reality itself was waiting for me to act. Could I uncover the truth about what had happened so long ago? And more importantly, would that knowledge lead to liberation or further doom? I had my answer. I wouldn't allow my bloodline to be lost in the echoes of despair. The trapped spirits that had once been vibrant souls called out, seeking redemption. I flipped the locket shut, steel firm in my resolve. I had to dig deeper into the heart of this tragedy, unraveling the pain until the truth emerged. My bones tensed. None of this could simply sit with me. I would either bring them peace, or myself to peril. I moved, determined, toward the door, where the hallway lay beckoning like a sepulchre of waiting secrets. With each step, shadows ebbed and flowed along the walls, urging, no, demanding me to find what I had lost. I opened the door, stepping forth into the unknown, where the night awaited with unresolved answers and the anxiety of bygone memories demanded to be awakened. I might not know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. The whispering was behind me no longer. It was time to confront whatever was waiting in the shadows of this ancient silence. And so, with lingering uncertainty, I stepped forward, my heart daring to believe I could bring light to the dark, to save both them and myself.